Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, today we are swapping the usual deep dive for something a bit more sandy.
Definitely more sandy.
We're heading straight into the Maldives. For years, decades really, it's been held up as the absolute gold standard, that ultimate tropical fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Crystal clear waters, luxury bungalows over the water. It paints quite a picture.
It really does. So our mission today is pretty straightforward. A rapid but balanced look at whether the Maldives is actually worth visiting in 2025.
Right. Does the dream still match up?
Exactly. Or does the reality, things like the cost, the environmental side,
Mm-hmm.
did that start to outweigh the fantasy?
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through all the source material you shared to try and give you a clear verdict, depending on what you're looking for.
And that's the real tension, isn't it, for pretty much anyone looking at the Maldives? You're drawn by this, incredible beauty and the promise of real escape.
Yeah.
But you have to weigh that against, two huge things. The cost, which is often astronomical, and these growing environmental concerns, big questions.
Okay, let's start with the dream then. Let's unpack that side first.
Yeah.
When people rave about the Maldives, they talk about just stunning beauty and this world-class luxury. What actually justifies that reputation? And maybe more importantly, the extreme price tag.
Well, a lot of the justification comes down to how these private island resorts actually work. It's kind of an operational miracle, really.
Okay.
It's not just that the sand is white, though it is. It's the sheer exclusivity. You're often booking, essentially, a whole tiny island just for relaxation.
Right.
And each resort is its own little world. Think about it. Power generation, making fresh water, dealing with waste, transport.
Mm-hmm.
It all has to be built and run from scratch, right there.
Okay. So you're not just paying a premium for nice sand and a view.
Yeah.
You're paying for the immense effort of basically running a miniature floating town miles out in the ocean.
Exactly. That puts the cost into a bit more perspective, I think.
Yeah, it does.
And that infrastructure is what delivers those, iconic experiences, the specific turquoise lagoons you see in photos, that guaranteed privacy.
Mm-hmm.
World-class spas, obviously. And it creates this setting for romance and exclusivity that's pretty much unparalleled. It's the global honeymoon capital for a reason.
And what about for ocean lovers? The sources often call the Maldives a kind of marine mecca. What specifically makes the underwater appeal world-class?
I think it's the consistency, especially for the big sightings. It's not just, oh, the snorkeling's nice here. It's more like guaranteed world-class diving and snorkeling, especially for seeing those huge, gentle giants. The sources kept highlighting manta rays and the big one, whale sharks.
Okay.
Getting that kind of reliable interaction with those specific creatures, it's actually quite rare elsewhere on the planet.
And beyond the wildlife, the resorts themselves seem to compete on adding wow factors. I saw things mentioned like unique dining, even glowing beaches.
That's right. The operators are always looking for ways to stand out, so you get these really unique things like those bioluminescent beaches where the sand literally glows at night sometimes.
Yeah.
And those underwater restaurants you see pictures of, they're real and pretty unforgettable. It takes a beach holiday and turns it into this exclusive kind of sensory event made for memories and, let's be honest, photos.
Definitely photo-worthy. We should probably also touch on the logistics quickly.
Okay.
Getting there is a long haul for most people, but are things getting any easier?
Yeah, the sources suggest it is improving somewhat. The main long-haul flight itself seems to be getting smoother with better international connections, more routes opening up.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You commit that time, that effort, maybe 20 hours of travel just to get there. That's the initial logistical hurdle.
Right.
But the sources are pretty clear that long journey. It's really just the appetizer before you hit the main course, which is the financial commitment and the actual on-the-ground experience.
That's a perfect transition, actually, into the reality check. So you've made the journey, you've got these high expectations.
Yeah.
But then comes the high price tag. Let's talk about that cost barrier. Where does it really, bite?
Oh, it bites everywhere. The cost is, it's pervasive. We talked about why it costs so much, that operational complexity.
Yeah.
But the actual price for your room, your food, any organized activities, it's just significantly higher than you'd find in, say, Thailand or parts of Indonesia, which also have stunning beaches.
Right. Other beautiful spots in Southeast Asia.
Exactly. You're paying a very hefty premium for the privacy and that specific private island model.
Okay. Now, this is where, for me, it got really interesting, especially for travelers who think about their impact. Shifting to the reality, the sources raised some, frankly, alarming points about the environment. What was the most sort of stark finding about the destination's future?
I I think the most immediate, the most existential threat has to be rising sea levels. It's stark.
How so?
The Maldives is one of the lowest lying nations on Earth. Its average elevation is incredibly low. So sea level rise isn't some distant future problem for them.
It's happening now.
It's an immediate critical issue. It affects the long-term viability of the entire island chain. And then, connected to that, you absolutely cannot ignore the widespread coral bleaching.
Right, so you're potentially paying top dollar to see amazing marine life,
Yeah.
but the very foundation of that ecosystem, the coral reefs, are in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Do the sources suggest that maybe the marine attraction is diminished because of this?
That's a really tough question for travelers. The big, iconic sightings, mantis, whale sharks, they often still happen because those animals are migratory, moving through.
Okay.
But the overall health of the reef systems, the coral itself, it's fragile, very fragile. You need to be aware as a visitor that you're witnessing a kind of paradise that is actively, visibly struggling against climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And, the environmental footprint of high-end tourism itself, bringing everything in, managing waste that just adds more pressure.
That context feels really vital. Okay, let's pivot slightly to the experience on the ground. What if you're someone who really values, deep cultural immersion on your travels?
Yeah.
What does the very resort-centric nature of the Maldives mean for you?
It probably means you'll feel quite limited, maybe even frustrated.
How so?
The whole experience, by design mostly, keeps you within the resort. That bubble is intentional. If you're hoping for something like wandering through local markets in Bali or exploring ancient sites like you might in Vietnam,
Yeah, you won't find that?
you'll come up pretty empty in the Maldives. There just isn't much opportunity built in to explore local Maldivian life or culture easily, because the model is based on guests staying put on their private island.
So if the resort bubble is, as the sources suggest, quite hard to pop, is any real cultural experience possible? Or should you just accept that and maybe pick a different destination if culture is a high priority?
For deep cultural immersion, honestly, yes, you should probably prioritize a different destination. That said, if you're really set on the Maldives, maybe for the water, but want some local feel and need to do it more affordably, there is the guest house option on local islands. We can talk about that.
Right, the alternative.
But generally, this place excels at luxury, relaxation, marine life, not so much authentic cultural exchange.
That makes sense, aligning expectations. And just looping back to logistics quickly, once you actually land at the main airport, getting to your specific resort isn't just a quick taxi ride, is it?
No, not at all. The internal travel, getting from Malay International Airport to your island, is often complex, and it adds to the cost significantly.
How does it work?
It usually involves either multiple boat transfers or the really iconic but famously pricey option, a seaplane ride.
Ah, the seaplanes, yeah.
Those transfers add quite a bit of time and money onto your trip. And you also have to factor in the weather risk, especially seasonally.
What kind of risk?
Well, the wet monsoon season, which is roughly May through October, brings rain, obviously, but also stronger winds and rougher seas. Occasional storms can genuinely delay or even cancel those boat and seaplane transfers.
Right, which could really mess up a tightly planned, expensive vacation.
Exactly. Paying all that money only to be stuck at the airport because the seaplane can't fly. Not ideal.
Definitely not. Okay, so let's look ahead. For someone listening, maybe planning a trip for 2025, what does all this mean practically? Let's get into some actionable strategies.
Yeah, good idea. Strategy number one, and it's critical, is timing. You want to hedge your bets for the best weather and, importantly, minimize that monsoon risk.
So when is best?
The absolute prime time, the dry season, reliably runs from about November through April. That's when you generally get the most sunshine, calm seas, crucial for those transfers we just talked about.
Okay, November to April. Got it. Now, cost is probably the biggest barrier for most. For people who want that Maldivian beauty, the water, the vibe, but maybe can't stomach the ultra-luxury price tag, what specific cost-saving options came up?
The single biggest strategy is to basically ditch the private island resort idea altogether.
Right.
And instead, look at staying in guest houses on locally inhabited islands. This cuts accommodation costs dramatically.
So that's a big one.
Anything else? Second, look for comprehensive package deals, sometimes bundling the flights, the accommodation, maybe some meals, and those expensive transfers together can bring the overall price down quite a bit.
Makes sense.
And thirdly, if you can tolerate some risk of rain, traveling outside that peak November-April window in the shoulder seasons will definitely see prices drop. especially on flights and the resorts themselves.
So that really comes back to clarifying your goal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are you there for the absolute pinnacle of private island luxury? Or is your main draw the turquoise water and seeing the marine life?
Precisely. Because if it's mostly the latter, the water, the animals then exploring those local island guest houses is probably your most affordable route in.
Yeah.
And whichever way you go, luxury resort or local guest house, given everything we've said about the environmental pressures, responsible tourism really feels like it should be top of mind now.
How can you do that?
Actively look for and support resorts or guest houses that are clearly demonstrating sustainable practices. Things like waste reduction, reef protection programs, supporting local communities. Your choices as a visitor where you spend your money can genuinely make a difference there.
That feels important. Okay, so this deep dive, it really paints a picture of pretty stark trade-offs, doesn't it?
It really does.
You've got this genuinely unparalleled luxury, the romance factor, incredible marine nature.
Yeah.
But it's balanced against, well, staggering expense, sometimes tricky logistics,
Yeah.
and this undeniable environmental fragility.
So the final verdict, pulling it all together from the sources, it has to be conditional,
Yeah.
meaning the Maldives is absolutely worth it if your top priorities are luxury, privacy, romance, maybe that specific type of marine life encounter, and you have the budget to match.
Right.
But it is definitively not the ideal choice if you're primarily focused on budget travel or if deep cultural immersion is really high on your list. You just have to align your expectations with what it offers, which is primarily that resort-centric experience.
A potentially amazing, luxurious trip, but one that needs careful planning and, yes, a significant budget.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to leave the final thought with you, something for our listener to chew on.
Sure. Okay, well, given those really serious environmental threats we discussed, the rising sea levels, the coral bleaching, think about what that urgency implies for your decision.
Mm.
Is the Maldives a destination whose unique natural beauty maybe has a ticking clock? And if so, should that possibly influence how soon you might consider going, perhaps even in 2025?
Food for thought indeed. A ticking clock on paradise. All right, that's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.